When I played that video in front of the judge, the investors, and her entire legal team, I watched the color drain from her face in real time. 3 years of lies, unraveling in 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Welcome to Cheating Story Exposed. Real stories, real justice, no sugarcoating. You know what? I notice many of you watching haven't hit that subscribe button yet. Here's the thing, we drop stories like this every single day. Stories about people who got played, got smart, and got even. If you want to see how these situations really end, subscribe now and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. My name is Nathan Reeves, and I learned the hardest way possible that the person you trust with your ideas can become your worst nightmare if you're not careful. I met Olivia Patterson at a tech conference in Austin 5 years ago. I was presenting a paper on predictive analytics applications for supply chain optimization, and she approached me afterward with genuine enthusiasm about the concepts. She had an MBA from a prestigious school, connections in the venture capital world, and the kind of polished business development skills I frankly lacked. I was the technical brain. I'd spent 8 years developing algorithms and systems architecture. She was the relationship builder who could open doors I didn't even know existed. We started collaborating informally at first. I'd share technical concepts. She'd provide feedback on market viability and positioning. The chemistry was professional and productive. After 6 months, she proposed we formalize a partnership to develop my supply chain platform into a commercial product. I should have been more careful from the beginning, but I trusted her. The concept was entirely mine. I'd been developing it for 3 years before we even met. I had documentation, code repositories, even academic publications under my name. But I was naive about intellectual property protection. I thought having the technical knowledge and the original work was enough. Olivia was smart. She never directly claimed she'd created the core technology. Instead, she positioned herself as the co-visionary who'd seen the commercial potential I'd missed. She'd say things like, "When we developed this approach," or "Our methodology revolutionizes," in meetings with potential investors and clients. The first time I noticed it, we were pitching to a venture capital firm. She presented our deck, which I'd created the technical content for, and consistently used I instead of we when describing the innovation. I thought it was just presentation nerves or a slip of the tongue. After the meeting, I mentioned it gently. She apologized profusely, said she'd been so focused on selling the vision that she'd gotten carried away, promised it wouldn't happen again. I accepted the explanation. It happened again and again. Within a year, Olivia had cultivated a reputation in the startup ecosystem as the brilliant mind behind a revolutionary supply chain platform. I was increasingly introduced as the technical lead or the development guy. Important, but not the originator. I was uncomfortable, but I rationalized it. We were building something together. Her connections were bringing in opportunities. Did it really matter who got credit as long as we were both succeeding? Yes, it mattered enormously. The turning point came when we were approached by a major logistics company interested in licensing our platform. The initial meetings went well, and they requested a detailed technical presentation. I prepared comprehensive documentation showing the algorithm architecture, the predictive modeling approach, the optimization frameworks, all the intellectual foundation of what made our system unique. The night before the presentation, Olivia called me. She sounded stressed, said she had a family emergency and needed to fly to Seattle immediately. Could I handle the presentation? Alone, of course I could. It was my technology. I told her not to worry. I delivered the presentation. The logistics company was impressed. They wanted to move forward with a pilot program worth $200,000. I called Olivia with the good news. She sounded distracted, said she'd handle the contract negotiations when she returned. That's when things got strange. The logistics company's legal team sent over the standard contract. But when I forwarded it to Olivia for review, she said her attorney would handle it directly. She CC'd someone named Richard Hallbrook from a law firm I'd never heard of. Hallbrook sent me a revised contract. I'm not a lawyer, but I'd reviewed enough business agreements to spot problems. This version had shifted the intellectual property ownership structure. Instead of our informal partnership arrangement, it established a new entity where Olivia would hold majority control of all original concepts and innovations. I called her immediately. She was smooth. Said it was just a formalization of our working relationship, That venture investors needed clean corporate structure that it protected both of us. When I pressed on the IP ownership language, she got slightly defensive, asked if I didn't trust her after everything we'd built together. I didn't sign it. That was my first act of self-protection, and it saved everything that came after. Olivia's attitude shifted. She became colder, more transactional. Our regular strategy meetings became infrequent. She started having conversations with investors and potential clients without including me. I realized I needed to protect myself legally. I contacted an intellectual property attorney named Gregory Morrison. I brought him everything: my original research papers, code repositories with timestamps, email chains, documentation showing the development timeline years before Olivia and I met. Gregory was direct. I was in a vulnerable position, without formal agreements. Establishing ownership, and with Olivia actively positioning herself as the business leader and co-creator, I could face serious problems if things deteriorated. He advised immediate action. First, formal copyright registration of my original code and algorithms. Second, detailed documentation of my sole authorship and development timeline. Third, establishing a clear corporate entity that explicitly defined intellectual property ownership before Olivia could create alternative structures. I filed comprehensive copyright registrations for all my original work. The filings included timestamps, documentation, and technical specifications that clearly established me as the sole creator and owner. This process took 3 weeks. I didn't tell Olivia. While I was securing my legal position, Olivia was making her move. I discovered she'd been meeting with the logistics company separately, positioning herself as the primary point of contact. She'd formed a new corporation, Vision Chain Technologies, and listed herself as founder and CEO. I wasn't mentioned anywhere in the corporate documents. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She said she'd moved forward with the business structure we'd discussed. I reminded her we'd never agreed to anything. I'd explicitly declined to sign her proposed agreement. She turned cold, said I was being unreasonable and paranoid. That she'd done all the relationship building and business development while I just coded. That if I wanted to be part of Vision Chain Technologies, I could come aboard as a contractor, but the company and the business were hers. I asked about the intellectual property, the algorithms and systems I'd created years before we met. She smiled, said those were jointly developed during our collaboration and that her contributions were as significant as mine. I knew then she'd planned this from the beginning. I told her I wouldn't be joining Vision Chain Technologies and that she had no rights to my intellectual property. She laughed, said I could try to prove that, and ended the call. The next day, I received a cease and desist letter from Richard Hallbrook. It claimed I was attempting to misappropriate Vision Chain Technologies' proprietary business methods and trade secrets. It demanded I stop representing myself as having created their platform and threatened legal action if I contacted any of their clients or investors. I forwarded it to Gregory Morrison. He wasn't surprised. He said this was an aggressive but not uncommon tactic. Establish a corporate identity, position yourself as the owner, then legally attack the actual creator before they can establish their rights publicly. Gregory drafted a response that was surgical. It detailed my copyright registrations with timestamps predating Vision Chain Technologies by years. It included documentation of my sole authorship and development. It demanded Olivia immediately cease all use of my intellectual property and public misrepresentation of ownership. Olivia's response was to accelerate her plans. She'd been pitching investors aggressively. I learned through mutual contacts that she'd been positioning Vision Chain Technologies as her original concept, developed through her vision of supply chain transformation. She was raising a seed round of $2 million. I watched from a distance as she gave interviews to trade publications, appeared on startup podcasts, and built a public profile as an innovative entrepreneur. She never mentioned my name. The technology she was showcasing, my algorithms, my architecture, my years of development, was presented as Vision Chain Technologies' original innovation. I felt powerless and furious, but Gregory advised patience. We were building an ironclad case. Every public statement she made, every presentation, every pitch, it was all documentation of her fraud. We collected everything. Then I got lucky in the unluckiest way. One of the venture firms, Olivia, pitched to recorded her presentation. They did this routinely for investment committee review. Someone in that firm, I never learned who, sent me the video anonymously with a simple message. Thought you should see this. I watched it with Gregory. It was damning. Olivia spent 45 minutes presenting her revolutionary approach to supply chain optimization. She walked through technical concepts I'd developed, using my frameworks, my terminology, my specific methodological approaches. Showed diagrams I'd created. She explained algorithms I'd designed, and she claimed it was all her original work. Not we developed, not our team created. She explicitly said, I developed. I created my innovation. Gregory paused the video at multiple points, taking notes. When it ended, he looked at me and said one word, perfect. This was the evidence that would end her, but we needed the right moment. If we moved too quickly, she could claim it was a mistake or misunderstanding. We needed her fully committed to the lie. That moment came 6 months later. Olivia successfully closed her $2 million seed round. Vision Chain Technologies officially launched with significant press coverage. She'd hired a team, secured office space, and positioned herself as a rising star in the tech startup world. And then she sued me. The lawsuit claimed I had misappropriated Vision Chain Technologies' trade secrets and was attempting to steal their intellectual property for a competing venture. She was seeking an injunction preventing me from working in supply chain technology, plus damages of $5 million. It was absurd and brazen. She was suing me for stealing the work I'd created years before she'd even met me. Gregory was thrilled. She'd handed us the perfect venue for complete exposure. We filed a comprehensive response. It included my copyright registrations with timestamps proving my work predated Vision Chain Technologies by 3 to 5 years. It included my original research papers and publications. It included code repositories with detailed commit histories showing continuous development going back 7 years. And it included a countersuit for copyright infringement, fraud, and intentional misrepresentation. The case went to discovery. Olivia's legal team demanded extensive documentation from me, which I provided gladly. Every document reinforced my position as the sole creator and owner of the intellectual property. We demanded the same from Vision Chain Technologies. What we received was remarkably thin, corporate formation documents from the previous year, some business development materials, investor pitch decks, but no technical development documentation predating their incorporation. No research history. No evolution of the algorithms and systems they were built on, because all of that was mine and they knew it. Olivia tried to argue that she'd contributed strategic vision and business innovation that was equally valuable to the technical development. Her attorneys positioned her as the conceptual founder, whose insights had shaped the commercial application. Gregory destroyed this argument methodically. He showed that my original research papers, published 3 years before I'd met Olivia, already described the commercial applications and market opportunities. Her supposed contributions were already embedded in my original work. The depositions were brutal. Olivia struggled to answer basic technical questions about her platform. She couldn't explain the algorithmic approaches. She couldn't describe the development process. She contradicted herself repeatedly about timelines and contributions. I, on the other hand, could explain every technical detail because I'd created all of it. The trial was scheduled for March. As we approached, Olivia's legal team tried to negotiate a settlement. They offered to dismiss her lawsuit if I dismissed mine, and we agreed to go our separate ways. Gregory advised refusing. We had overwhelming evidence and we were going to win decisively. Then, 2 weeks before trial, Olivia made a critical mistake. She was invited to speak at a major tech conference in San Francisco, one of those prestigious events where successful founders share their journeys. Someone sent me the video of her presentation. She told the entire story of creating Vision Chain Technologies, how she'd developed the core algorithms, how she'd pioneered the predictive approach, how she'd built everything from the ground up. She was inspirational, confident, and completely fraudulent. She even took questions from the audience about her technical development process. She fumbled through answers using buzzwords and vague descriptions, but she maintained the fiction that she was the technical innovator behind the platform. Gregory added it to our evidence file. The trial began on a cold March morning. The courtroom wasn't one of those dramatic television setups. It was a standard civil courtroom, fluorescent lighting, wooden benches, the quiet hum of legal procedure. But what happened there was everything. Olivia's attorney, Richard Holbrook, opened with a strategy of attacking my credibility. He argued I was a disgruntled former collaborator who couldn't accept that business success required more than technical skills. He painted Olivia as an innovative entrepreneur who'd taken rough technical concepts and transformed them into a viable commercial platform. He presented her as the visionary, me as the technician who'd helped along the way but was now trying to steal credit. When it was Gregory's turn, he was methodical and devastating. He walked through my copyright registrations, explaining to the judge that these weren't just paperwork. They were detailed technical documentation with specific timestamps proving creation dates. He showed my research papers published in academic journals years before Vision Chain Technologies existed. He presented code repositories with thousands of commits showing continuous development spanning 7 years. Then he brought up the videos. First, the venture capital pitch that had been sent to me anonymously. Gregory played it for the court. The judge watched as Olivia presented her technology using my work claiming sole credit. Holbrook objected, arguing it was taken out of context, that she'd just been nervous and misspoke. Gregory smiled and pulled up the second video, the tech conference presentation from San Francisco. This one was even more explicit. Olivia spent 30 minutes describing her development process, her technical innovations, her algorithms. The judge watched the entire clip. When it ended, he looked at Olivia and asked directly, "Ms. Patterson, did you create the technical architecture and algorithms described in these presentations?" She hesitated. She looked at Holbrook. "She looked at me finally," she said. "I contributed significantly to the conceptual framework and business application." The judge repeated his question more specifically. "Did you write the code? Did you develop the mathematical models? Did you design the system architecture?" Another pause. "No, but did Mr. Reeves?" Longer pause. "The work was collaborative," Gregory interrupted with permission from the judge. He displayed my copyright registrations side by side with the dates of Vision Chain Technologies Incorporation. The timeline was irrefutable. My work existed and was legally protected years before Olivia's company existed. Then Gregory played his final card. He brought up email communications we'd retrieved during discovery. In one exchange, 18 months earlier, Olivia had written to a potential investor describing the platform. In that email, she'd explicitly stated, "The technical foundation was developed by Nathan Reeves over several years prior to our partnership." She'd known and documented the truth, then later denied it. Publicly, the judge asked for a recess. When we returned 2 hours later, his expression told the story. He ruled from the bench. Olivia's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. My countersuit was successful on all counts. The judge found that Olivia had knowingly and intentionally misappropriated my intellectual property, engaged in fraud and misrepresentation, and damaged my professional reputation. He ordered her to immediately cease all use of my copyrighted work, to publicly correct her misrepresentations, and to pay damages of $300,000 plus my legal fees. But more importantly, he ordered that Vision Chain Technologies' assets be frozen pending proper intellectual property ownership determination. Olivia's $2 million startup collapsed within weeks. The investors, once they learned the truth, pulled their funding. The employees left. The office closed. The media coverage that had celebrated her as an innovative entrepreneur now exposed her as a fraud who'd built a company on stolen work. Her reputation in the tech community was destroyed. No one would work with her. No investor would fund her. She'd burned every bridge by being caught in such a brazen and documented lie. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt vindicated but exhausted. The legal process had taken 2 years and cost me over $100,000 in attorney fees, which I recovered, but that's money and time I'll never get back. I'd watched someone I'd trusted betray me systematically and then try to destroy me legally when I defended myself. But I'd protected what was mine. The copyright registrations that Gregory pushed me to file had been crucial. Without that formal documentation, the case would have been much more difficult. She could have argued joint development or collaborative creation. The timestamps and legal registrations made my ownership irrefutable. After the judgment, I received messages from several people in the startup world who'd worked with Olivia. Turns out I wasn't the first person she'd tried this with. There were others, collaborators and partners who'd contributed work only to have her take credit or cut them out. But they hadn't documented their contributions or protected themselves legally, so they just walked away. I hadn't walked away. I'd fought back with evidence and law. 6 months after the trial, I launched my own company, Courtroom Analytics. I used the same technology I'd always owned, but this time with proper legal structure, clear intellectual property protection, and careful partnership agreements. I brought on a business development partner, a woman named Diana Carlson who'd reached out after reading about my case. The first thing we did was draft comprehensive agreements explicitly defining ownership, contributions, and rights. We both knew what could happen without those protections. Courtroom Analytics secured funding within 4 months. This time, investors were working with the actual creator of the technology, not someone claiming credit for work they didn't do. The platform I'd developed was still revolutionary, that hadn't changed. What changed was that I was finally getting proper recognition and control. We signed our first major client 10 months after launching. It was the same logistics company Olivia had tried to work with through Vision Chain Technologies. They'd been following the legal case and reached out to work with me directly once everything was resolved. That contract was worth $400,000. I built the team carefully. Every person who joined understood the company culture, transparent collaboration with clear attribution and respect for individual contributions. I never wanted anyone working for me to experience what Olivia had put me through. Today, 3 years after the trial, Courtroom Analytics is valued at $8 million. We have 23 employees, contracts with major corporations, and a reputation for both technical excellence and ethical business practices. Olivia tried to restart her career under a different name and company structure, but the tech community has a long memory. Her fraud case is documented and searchable. No serious investor or partner will work with her now. I don't spend time thinking about revenge or satisfaction over her downfall. What I think about is the lesson I learned and try to share with other technical founders. Your work has value. Your ideas have value. Your intellectual contributions have value, but value without protection is vulnerability. If you're collaborating with someone, document everything. If you're building something, protect it legally. If someone tries to take credit for your work, don't rationalize it or excuse it. Address it immediately. I could have prevented so much damage if I'd been more careful from the beginning. If I'd established formal agreements when Olivia and I started working together. If I'd corrected her first time she took solo credit. If I'd protected my intellectual property the moment we discussed commercialization. But I didn't know better. I trusted someone who seemed trustworthy. I believed partnership meant shared success without needing legal formalization. I was wrong. The legal system worked in my case because I had irrefutable evidence, copyright registrations with timestamps, published research, documented code history. Without those things, it would have been much harder to prove ownership. Young founders need to understand this. Technical brilliance isn't enough. You need legal protection and documentation. When people ask me about the case now, they often focus on the courtroom moment, playing those videos of Olivia claiming credit for my work. That was dramatic and satisfying, yes, but the real victory wasn't that moment. The real victory was every piece of evidence I'd gathered, every copyright registration I'd filed, every document that proved what was true. Justice doesn't happen because you're right. Justice happens because you can prove you're right. I proved it. Olivia Patterson built a company on stolen work, raised money through fraud, and tried to destroy the person she'd betrayed. She lost because the evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. I didn't beat her with anger or emotion. I beat her with timestamps, documentation, and truth. That's how you protect yourself. That's how you win. My advice to anyone building something valuable: document your work, protect it legally, and never assume good intentions are enough to prevent betrayal. Because sometimes the person you trust most is the one who'll try to take everything. And when that happens, you'd better have proof of what's yours. I did, and I kept it.